All right, so today I'm going to go over the how I would animate something like this. And again, I'm going to take the very simple, direct, like this is how I would animate it, and then this is how I would make it fancier, okay? These things will go into that next level of, when we get to the hologram, some of these things will obviously apply to that, okay? So I'm going to go into After Effects, do everything for every project in the same project file. Okay, so you don't need to make a new project for the next piece of text. Keep everything right here. It makes your life a lot easier, and it makes my life a lot easier too. So I'm going to go and import my file, hologram opener, leave this as footage, and then import. I'm going to make a new composition, 1280, 720, 24, 30 seconds. Hologram opener. And then I'm going to organize my stuff. This goes here, this is going to drop down here, and then go into my artwork folder. Okay, everything we do, keep it organized 100%. Even if I don't say keep it organized, you should know that. And then I need to do the same thing I did on my past one, which is just build this in here. So I'm going to copy it, go to my text tool, click, paste it, switch to my move tool, and then line it up. There we go. Same thing here, text tool, click, paste this. And most of this one is going to be a lot of repetition from the previous one, but obviously we will have some different stuff we will learn. And then I need my line underneath, so I'm just going to use my pen tool, nothing's clicked, and there's my line. It's already colored. 13 stroke, that should be good. All right, so now I can turn that off. And I can go and kind of finesse this a little bit. Maybe this should be 8, 4, looks good. Also, just so you're aware, you can go into the stroke wording here, and you can take the opacity down, or you could change this to a different mode if you wanted to. Just want to mention that in case you needed to at some point. Okay, so first thing I need to do is I need to write out initializing load sequence. I'm going to pause for a few seconds, and then I'll do building hologram UI, and then pause, and then that'll be the end of it, okay? So I'm going to go and animate this the same way I did my previous one using the animators. Now, because this is supposed to be typed on, there really shouldn't be anything fancy with it. It's not going to like bubble up or pop into frame. It's just going to like be there. Typically, something like this, I would just use opacity on, because that's typically how it's happening. You hit the key, or the computer reads it, and it like lights up those light values. So I'm going to start off at 0. I'm going to go to my range selector, and I'm just going to go, oops, I put it on the wrong one first. Let me do the other one. Doesn't matter, I just want to put it on the other one first. So sanity, we'll put that one on top, if that makes more sense. And opacity. 0, there we go, and then we'll set that, okay. So now we're going to write this out like that. So I hit start off. I don't know how long it's going to take, maybe like 3 seconds, and then pull it up, okay. We don't need to use easy ease, again, because this is something typed. It should be a constant feed. I do want to go into my advanced area and maybe set the based on characters excluding spaces, but I'm going to watch it first and see what it looks like. All right, that's way too slow. Let me just speed it up just a little bit. So I'll go to 2 seconds for this. All right, that feels a little bit better. I'm going to go a little bit faster still. Okay, that's better. Okay. All right, so I don't need to worry about this changing from characters excluding spaces. I think that's sufficient for what I have. All right, so that's good. And then I'm going to, excuse me, I'm going to take this animator here, and I'm going to go to my animation. I'm going to save this as a preset. You don't have to do this part. You can just redo the entire thing, but why reinvent the wheel? Write out text. This could be anywhere. I'm putting it inside my presets, so it'll automatically load next time. If it's not in there, this is going to take a second to save. You can go to Animation, Load Preset, and then find the preset and then load it in there. Browse presets, find it, and then you can connect to it. Okay. So now I'm just going to go to my hologram one, the other one. Remember, I'm going to play this out. I'm going to wait. I'm going to do like 2 seconds. So this ends about 106. So I'm going to go to, let's say, 306. Then I'm going to click on that, go to my animation, go to recent, and then say write out text. And now it should go 1, wait a couple seconds, and then write out the other one. Okay, so I don't have to redo that. I don't have to recreate the animator, reset the opacity, and then redo that. If I need to, I can hit U still and still tweak this. If this is supposed to go, let's say, faster, I can just push it in more. If I need to adjust the timing, I can do that. Okay, so that's part of it. Next thing I'm going to do is get the line to match up. So I'm just going to do a trim path on this. And start that back here. Go to about 106 where this is all played out, and then put that at the end. And then see if it feels like they're in sync. That's pretty much enough in sync. I think that's good. Okay, good. Now I do need to add one more thing. I want to have the little blinking cursor. That's what makes us feel like it's a computer typing this stuff out. So I'm just going to create that shape. Make sure nothing is clicked. Go to the end of this and then draw out what I want that cursor to look like. Sometimes it's just an eye, sometimes it's a line, sometimes it's a box. In this case, I'm going to go with the box just to keep it a little bit different. There we go. And I think on this, I'm going to take the opacity and set this to 50. That'll be good. Okay, so that feels like that's what that's supposed to look like. I'm going to rename this cursor blink. Rename this one underline. Okay. Now I need this cursor blink to match the animation of that. Okay, so I'm going to go to the position and animate that first. So I'm going to animate it backwards also. So this is the end of my animation, is right there. Set a keyframe. Go to the beginning of the animation. Slide this all the way back. I should have put the pivot in the right spot, but we'll see. All right. Now I did that actually, like that lines up pretty good with where it's supposed to start. I thought I would have to open up my guides and then throw in a guide here so I would remember this is where it's supposed to start. But actually looks like I lined it up pretty good with where it's actually going to start. Wow, it's right there. It is right there, right? All right, today's an on day. Good. We'll work a lot of stuff today. All right, so now that's a little bit off, right? So you can see how the text is like in front of it. That shouldn't be, the box should always be past it. So I'm going to adjust maybe my speed of this, maybe just push this a little bit faster. Okay, if there's a little bit of overlap, that's fine. I just want to make sure that it's not too far in front or too far behind it. All right, that feels better, right? Okay. So now I have one more little step that I have to do, which is make it blink. It should flash, flicker on and off. So I'm going to go to opacity, and what I don't want to do is I don't want to keyframe the opacity, scooch up a little bit, set this to 0, scooch up a little bit, set this back to 100, scooch up a little bit, set this back to 0, and then do that, right? It's going to literally take me forever. Right. Now the other thing I could do is I could copy paste. So I could say this is good. I'm going to copy this and paste it, and then paste it, and then paste it, and paste it, and paste it. And then I will get this blinking. But again, it's a lot of work, and it's not consistent. The spacing between these is not correct. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it up, and then I'm going to loop the animation. Okay. So After Effects has this thing called expressions. After Effects, loop out. And there's a website called School of Motion. They actually teach motion design. So after Macomb, if you're like, I really want to do, learn a lot more about After Effects, this is a really good resource. They have several classes on character animation, several classes on, pretty much everything. So this is a really good guide for you to see. This is what we want to do. We want to make one animation and have that animation loop over and over and over again. Okay. So you can get more examples there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an expression right on the word opacity. So I built my first set of keyframes here. It goes from 100 to 0, and that's all it does. To do an expression, you hold down Alt, and then you click on the stopwatch. And this will pop open the expression dialog, which is right here, and then I'm going to type in my expression. So that we can see this a bit easier, I'm going to make this a bit bigger. And I'm going to do an expression. It's not bigger, there it is. And this expression is called loop out. Okay, so it's going to loop the outgoing keys. If I did loop in, it would do the looping before I get to the keyframes. I'm going to do loop out, it's going to do everything after the keyframes. So I have to title it or text it exactly like this. Loop out, parenthesis, quotation mark, the kind of loop out I'm doing, and then a comma and then 0. Okay, and if I go to this, you can see loop out, loop in, loop out, offset 2, loop out, cycle, right over, there it is. Okay, so this is the kind that it is, loop out. The O is capitalized. In quotation marks, I put the kind of looping out that it is. Now, what do you think something called ping pong is going to do? Back and forth, right? So 100 to 0 to 100 to 0, 100 to 0, right? It's exactly like ping pong, exactly, like Forrest Gump. So I'm going to type that in, loop out, and you'll see After Effects 2019 will actually bring this thing up where it'll show you this is a thing. And then I go here, quotation marks, here's different options. Continue, cycle, offset, or ping pong. Okay, ping pong. And then I go afterwards, I put a comma, and I put 0. Now I'm going to hit play. There it is. Now, how good is that speed it going, though? Kind of fast, right? So that's my spacing for these is right here. All I do is I move one of them further. Now that's going to go slower, but my expression is there, so everything trickles down. Okay. Now I think I also need to maybe offset the position. I think that the spacing for all this animation, I need to have it blinking a little bit first, then it writes the word out, blinks for a little bit, and then it goes away. Okay, so I'm going to adjust my spacing here. So I'm going to look at all my keyframes, and my underline, my initializing, and my building, I'm going to scoot these down a bit. So let's say there. And then my position for this, I'm going to also nudge down to there. Okay, so I should get blinking here, then it writes the word, and then it should blink for a little bit, and then it's going to go down to the next line. So I'm going to say about there it's going to stop blinking. I'm just going to hold Alt, right bracket, and that just stops that layer. Okay, so now take a look. Blink, 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 writes it out, blink, blink, goes away. Okay, we're telling a story about what this is. The blinking tells us it's a computer screen. It writes out a word, it blinks some more, then it goes away. Once it goes away, now our eye is available. Now what's going to happen? What's the next thing that we need to pay attention to? I'm going to have another blinker down here. That one's going to blink and write a word again. Now this one, I'm just going to copy this because I like to cheat. So I'm just going to duplicate this. And I'm going to rename this one cursor blink 2. And I can't just move the position. If I go to the position, it's keyframed, so I do this and it adjusts that. So I'm just going to hit A for anchor point. Let's slide this up so we can see where it's at. Let's slide this over so we can see it. And I'm going to slide the anchor point down and put it right there. Now, I most likely will need to adjust the position of it because it probably doesn't write as much, but we'll see. So now I can line this up to the end of this, is where this one should start. This one will be a different color, which I don't know yet because I want to get this. And I drop the red. There we go. All right, way too fast because the other one is finished by here. So I need to reline up my keyframes. So this one will be right there. This one will be right there, but it'll be a lot further back. Okay, now I could have just done these manually too. I could just, done each one manually by itself. Nothing wrong with it, except as far as speed of working on it goes, that it's pretty slow. There we go. Okay, so there's our animation. So I go here, initializing load sequence, blink, 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 goes away. The next one starts blinking. And then that one goes away also, okay? So animation part is done. Now I'm going to fancy it up. I'm going to put in a background here. So I'm going to go with this blue, and then I'm going to go to my brightness and darken it. And drop this on the bottom. There we go. If I wanted to put some dots on here, I'm going to go and create an ellipse. I'm going to go to this corner. I'm going to draw one dot. There it is. There it is. Okay. I'm going to give this that same color blue, so I'll just eyedrop this and then take the brightness up just a smidge. That's good. And then I'm going to go to effect. Not effect. I'm going to go to add. I'm going to go to repeater. And you'll see what this does. It repeats that shape. So if I go to the repeater here and I add more copies, I can get more dots going across the screen. If I go to transform repeater and I lower this to 25, the dots are closer together. So add more dots like this. There we go. Then I can add another repeater. Make sure I'm clicked on the top of that. Now this repeater, I'm going to go and change it from a direction here to the other way. And then I just add more copies. Oops. And now I have a screen full of dots. Okay, so very quickly I can create this kind of setup. If I need the dots to be bigger, I can go back to the original ellipse, go back to the original path, and I can make that path bigger or smaller or whatever. And that's way too big. I like it here, and I'm going to take the opacity down to like 50%. All right, maybe 25%. That's better. Okay. All right, so now fancy time. So I'm going to go to my composition, go to my hologram one, and drag this onto a new composition. So now this is just a lockdown version. Everything's right there. I want to offset all my pieces so they're all separate pieces. I don't want, I want everything to be just like it's on a computer screen and the pixels are basically like shifted. So I'm going to go to Effect, I'm going to go to Channel, oops, not Shift Channel. I'm going to go to Channel and I'm going to say Set Channels, there it is. What this will do is it'll get the channels from where we tell it to get the channels from. So right now it's getting the red from red, the green from green, and the blue from blue. Okay? So if I turn the red off and I turn the green off, it's blue. Now if I duplicate this, this has the same channels here. So now I'm going to switch it. So blue will be none. Green will be green. Then I'm going to duplicate this one again. I'm going to turn green off and turn red to red. Okay, so now I basically have three different versions, a blue, a green, and a red. If I go to this one and set the mode to add, then I go to this one and set the mode to add, look at what color we're back to, the original color, right? So now I just take this and I just use my arrow keys to nudge that over 2 pixels. And then I go to this one and nudge that one over a couple pixels. And now if we zoom in, you can see how we have this like layering of different colors. That's probably too much. 2 pixels is probably too much. Just nudge that back down and nudge this one. Yeah, it jumped a lot more than just 2 pixels there. Yeah, that's the idea with it too, though, right? Because we're out here, it looks like it's a little more high tech, right? And then we have that. It's kind of neat. All right, cool. So that works. Now I want to do more stuff to this, but I don't want to affect each layer individually. I want to affect everything as one whole. So I'm going to drag this into another composition. And now I have another composition that I can do something else to. This one I'm going to add a glow to. So I'm going to go to, I'm going to do this 2 ways. I'll show you the first way, which is just going to stylize, way up here, glow, and now I can add a glow. Basically, this will work with the color channels, so it's using the brightest versions, that's what's glowing. I can pull that down and everything will glow, pull it up and less stuff will glow. Here's the glow radius, here's the glow intensity, and so I can find something that seems appropriate. You know, a lot of this is artistic, like looking at it to see what's going to work. You don't want to go too crazy with it. Right now it's using the original colors. You can pick different colors, but I don't know why you would for something like this. Okay, so that's the original way you can do that. The other way is I just duplicate this. I set the top one to be an add. You can see how it's kind of glowing. And then I'm going to go to my effect, go to blur, and do a Gaussian blur on this. Okay, now basically everything has this kind of like fuzziness. Now I can go to my opacity and just take this down to like 10% or 15%. This way I feel like I have a bit more control over it because it's just a separate layer. I can do whatever I want. If I needed this to be extra glowy, I could even go to my color channels, go into, let's say, exposure, and I could pull my exposure up, and that'll brighten it some. But typically, just that little bit is all I need. Okay. Then one more drop on here, and now I'm going to add. I'm going to duplicate this again. I'm going to go and create a shape. I'm going to invert it. Set my top one to be a multiply, and then I'm just going to feather this mask out and expand the mask. And this will give me some kind of vignette around the edges so that it, again, feels like it's more complete. It feels like it's an actual finished piece versus if we look at the original one, that looks pretty boring compared to that one. This feels like there's a lot more going on in this specific one. Everything you do for animation, for motion graphics, it's about layering, knowing what layers to put, what layers not to put, and then how to get this to look, obviously, the best it can look. That glow is probably a little bit too much still. Let me go back to this. 50, 80. This might be a little bit too much here. Let's go to 8. There we go. And then maybe even taking this top one and giving it a little bit of a color adjustment. Hue and saturation, colorize. Let me set this off of multiply for a second so I can see it. There we go. That might be cool. Set that back to multiply. And so now it kind of has, instead of just the regular tint, it has more of like this bluish tint to it. Okay, so taking those same principles we had before, all we've added was the expression part. That's a new thing. We haven't done that before. And then adding all these different compositions to get that end finished look to make it feel a little bit more digitized, a little bit more realistic. One of the things that Ash talks about in one of his interviews is that sometimes to get the digital look like that, to make it feel a little bit more rustic, they'll actually have a huge monitor and videotape the monitor screen playing back their video so that it looks a lot more digital than just like, here's a movie, drop it in. My last step, I'm going to just name it Hologram Opener, Final. And then my Dolly Parton one, I'm going to label this one as Final also. Oops. Oops, that's the final one, see? That's why you label it Final. Cool. All right, so that's how you're going to do your hologram one. Questions on that one? Sir?
Oh, wait, I'll ask you.
After, okay. All right.